Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Adria Johnson, Chief Impact Officer at Metro United Way, and I'm so excited to be with you to welcome our fifth Beyond Buzzwords Speaker Series event, entailing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. This conversation is crucial to have, and it is a pleasure to welcome today's guest speaker, Austin Channing Brown, as we hear her perspective surrounding racial equity. The Beyond Buzzwords Speaker Series has succeeded in creating an opportunity to provide thoughtful and meaningful discussions for important topics among some of the most leading voices of equity. Today, we are fortunate to hear from another powerful voice for equity, Austin Channing Brown, a writer and media producer advocating for social change and providing inspirational leadership on racial justice in America. Her book, I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness, is an illuminating look at how white, middle-class evangelicalism has participated in an era of rising hostility, inviting the reader to confront apathy, recognize God's ongoing work in the world, and discover how Blackness, if we let it, can save us all. We owe a great deal of thanks to our partner on this speaker series for making today's event possible, Park Community Credit Union and Keisha Dana Ryan. Keisha, thank you for your leadership and commitment to equity. Also, thank you to everyone for joining us today to listen, learn, and be part of what's needed to be a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. This is the time where we need to continue to find a path forward with racial equity, justice, and reconciliation. The time is now to do something bold. Take an honest look and address the root causes of racialized systems and conditions in our community. I would like to take a moment to list a few of our community's staggering educational, wealth, health, and racial equity gaps. The rate of home ownership for Black households in Louisville is 36%, compared to 71% for white households. Home ownership is by far the biggest factor in creating wealth. Though only comprising 30% of the under 17 population, 77% of the children detained at the Jefferson County Youth Detention Center are Black. We rank 11th out of our 17 peer cities in education among the working age population. 53,000 households in Louisville don't have internet access, 45,000 don't even have computers, and 50,000 of our seniors don't have access to telehealth. Noting these statistics, we have a lot of work to do, and we know doing just enough will not be enough to address the growing gaps in education, wealth, health, and racial equity. But I am hopeful that Metro United Way is uniquely positioned to bring us all together, to bring our community's most pressing needs into focus, and create a stronger, more equitable future for all. Again, I am honored to be here today to kick off this dialogue about racial justice, faith, and Black womanhood that will motivate, inspire, and encourage others to be united as we continue to forge a lasting impact in our community. It is now my pleasure to introduce Keisha Dana Ryan, Executive Director of Philanthropy and Corporate Relations at Park Community Credit Union.
Thank you, Adria, so much. And I couldn't agree with you more on everything you said. So first, I'd like to thank Park Community Credit Union for this opportunity to continue to partner with our friends at Metro United Way on the speaker series. And absolutely thank you, Austin Channing Brown, for being here today. So today I'd like to talk to you about Park Community Credit Union, and we have really exciting news we'd love to share with you all in our audience today. Park is a strong community credit union partner addressing the needs in low-income communities. Because we care about access and equity so much, we became a certified development financial institution working with the U.S. Treasury to deploy capital in persistent poverty counties and low-income census tracts in Kentucky and Southern Indiana. We've now been a CDFI for 3 years. But that's not all. Park believes that everyone, no matter their socioeconomic status or geographic location, should have access to fair and affordable products and services. We quickly learned that the people in community need more than financial access. Just like Adria said, they need food, transportation, and addressing social determinants. One of the greatest issues and the most desperate need we see is health and access to health. Kentucky has less life expectancy by 12 years in some areas, high cardiovascular disease, high substance use and mental health rates. As a credit union, we know we have to help impact these issues in order to help communities build and sustain wealth. So we got to work as a credit union. We wanted to be more for our community. And so our CEO, Jim Spradlin, along with a Black-led community board and a BIPOC executive, that would be me, created Inspire, a Park Community Initiative. We are the philanthropic arm of Park Community Credit Union, and we focus on social, physical, and mental health by addressing access, equity, and advocacy. We're a brand new organization, and we are happy to say that we are now currently going to be deploying our first grant into the community with our partnership with the Kentucky Opioid Response Efforts. And so we will focus on stigma reduction, opioid education, and program management, specifically in BIPOC communities. This grant will come out in June of 2021, and organizations and nonprofits will have an opportunity to apply in July of 2021. This is just one of many new opportunities that you will see Inspire and Park as a sister organization take opportunities in helping our organizations across the state address health and wealth, because we believe that you have to address both in order to sustain our future and our generations to come. So if you want to learn more about our opportunities, look to inspirechange.org. That's NSPIRE change.org to learn more information. Now, I am super excited to introduce Austin Channing Brown. And so to learn a little about her, Austin Channing Brown is a New York Times bestseller and US Today bestseller author of I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. That offers an eye-opening account of growing up Black, Christian, and female in America, and the executive producer of The Next Question, a web series imagining how expansive racial justice can be. Her first book, released in May 2018, shot to the top of 20s of Amazon's bestsellers list, leading in its categories for months. I'm Still Here has received critical acclaim from influential publications such as Publishers Weekly and Booklist. It has also been featured in On Being, the Chicago Tribune, and WNYC, the religious news service, and Shonda Rhimes, the creator of TV series Grey's Anatomy, declaring a deeply personal celebration of Blackness that simultaneously sheds new light on racial injustice and inequality while offering hope for the future. As a media producer, Austin creates content that centers the experiences of Black women, dismantling the foundations of white supremacy, white interweaving, a way forward for all who will listen. Her nationally celebrated first season of The Next Question examines complex topics affecting social justice, while simultaneously celebrates the story, personalities, and humanities of their guests. Austin earned a bachelor's degree of arts in business management from North Park University, as well as a master's in social justice from Marygrove College in Detroit. Austin's professional career began in nonprofit sector, including homelessness and housing, along with youth engagement, funds development, and church operations. Passionate about racial justice and reconciliation, Austin travels in countries preaching and teaching how work intersects with faith. She's pretty amazing, if I do say so myself. And with her alongside, and who will be moderating and joining her today, is everyone's friend and community partner, Yvette Gentry. And I also say friend of mine because that gives me points. Everyone loves Yvette. Director of Justice and Opportunity at Metro United Way, who recently made history as the first female interim police chief in Louisville last year. Dedicated to community uplift and service, she is a veteran of the United States Army National Guard and leads the Rajon Rondo Foundation as executive director. Please join me in welcoming guest speaker Austin Channing Brown and moderator Yvette Gentry.
Hello, everybody. It is such a pleasure to join you today. That is an incredible way to open everything up. I am really impressed. You know, I'm always excited about talking to nonprofits because you all are already in the work, you know? There's a good chunk of my time that's spent trying to convince people to care about racial justice, trying to convince people that all the systems we just named, education, health, criminal justice, right, that all of these are interweaved. I spent a lot of time with my head in the data and the statistics and proving and pointing and teaching, and it is special when I get to be with a group of people who don't need to be convinced, right? Who are already in it and are just looking for more opportunities. I love this, to move beyond the buzzwords. So I thought today what I would talk about is allyship, because it's such a buzzword. It's such a buzzword, and it's so squishy. It's such a squishy buzzword. Oh, first of all, I also would like to say, please go over there and use that chat function, because it is killing me that I cannot like see your faces. I can't give you high fives. I can't, okay? I grew up in a Black church and I'm very used to like a call and response situation. So please head over there so that I can see that you are with me. I thought I would talk about allyship, but I thought I would talk about it from the perspective of Black women, right? Often what we do when we talk about allyship is we sit all the white people down and we're like, okay, take out your notebooks so that we can tell you about allyship, right? And what I would love to do is to actually talk about what Black women in particular, what people of color, what marginalized people can and should expect from allies. Because often it is hard for, you know, there's this pervasive notion that Black women are like tough and that we have superpowers and that we're intimidating and that we're aggressive. And yet, I bet most of you in your experience with Black women would say that we are some of the most gracious people to exist on the planet, right? And sometimes that graciousness can get of the way of calling allies higher, of raising the expectations. But when we do that, we can accomplish more together. So let's talk about allyship from the perspective of Black women. First of all, Black women, you should expect your allies to be more concerned about being courageous than being nice. Courageous over nice, okay? Tell me if this sounds familiar. You're sitting in a boardroom. There's one Black woman in the boardroom, and it is time for her to give her presentation. And before she is 5 minutes into her presentation, she has been interrupted 3 times. Someone has said the words, what I think Austin is trying to say is, after the meeting, someone is walking into her supervisor's office saying, you know, I think if Austin just like changed her tone just a little bit. Y'all tell me if I'm wrong. Go ahead to the chat and tell me if I'm wrong, right? And then here's what someone who's nice will do. Someone who is nice will lean over during the board meeting and be like, hey, can I get you some water? Yeah, you need a cookie? Or they'll come up to you afterwards, right? Afterwards and be like, you know what? That was just so unfair. Would you like to go get coffee? And now Austin is a raging mess. Okay. Now I'm feeling very aggressive. I wasn't feeling aggressive before. Okay. Now I'm feeling very aggressive and I am so upset. Why are we so upset? I want to give language to what it is that we are experiencing. And what we are experiencing is someone who wants to be seen as an ally, who wants to be dubbed an ally from the Black woman in the room, but doesn't want to put anything at risk. And so what they are doing is trying to straddle the fence of niceness so that they can remain likable to the organization, but still be dubbed an ally or a safe place for me. Okay? What you need is not someone who is going to be nice or who's going to prioritize niceness. What you need is not someone who's going to prioritize politeness. What you need is someone who is willing to be courageous, okay? The nice person is going to lean over to you and ask you if you want a bottle of water, all right? What you need isn't a bottle of water. What you need is someone to raise their hand and say, hey, listen, I'm really interested in what Austin is trying to say right now, but I just feel like she can't even like get out her whole thought because we keep interrupting her. So can we put the ball back in Austin's hands so that she can elaborate on what she's trying to say? That, friends, is courage. It is disrupting injustice in the moment that you see it, even if it makes someone in the room uncomfortable. But that requires courage. And there are a lot of white people in our lives who have not flexed that muscle of being courageous, right? And the reason it's courageous is because when you opt for courage over niceness, you are putting at risk the trappings of privilege and power. I once worked at a church where I was always the problem. Y'all know what I mean? I was always the problem. And because I was always the problem, I knew I was never going to be invited on the pastor's boat or in his private airplane or to the retreat center. Hello, somebody. The trappings of privilege weren't going to be offered to me. And when the other people in your life start choosing courage over niceness, what they are sacrificing are the trappings of privilege and power. It is right for you to expect your allies to be courageous over nice. Now, I don't mean they got to cuss everybody out. That don't mean they got to be mean, right? But if they're opting for niceness over courage, then that is someone who is still on the standby list, okay, for being your ally. They still in probation, okay, for your allyship. That's number one. Number two, your allies must realize that you are not the work. You're not the work. If somebody goes to take you out to coffee, that's wonderful, by a large, but realize at the end of that coffee date, they still haven't done any racial justice work. Because you're not the work. There is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing that you need to fix or that you need to change. The work of racial justice happens when we shift policies, when we shift decisions, when we shift money, when we create budgets, when we decide who's at the table of influence, when we re-examine power. Those are things that are the work of racial justice, right? So somebody who has, done something kind to you is wonderful, but it is not the work because you aren't the work. This is an individual way of understanding allyship, but I also want to talk about the community level, particularly because you're Metro United Way, right? So not only are the Black women who are leading racial justice work, not the work, right? But also Black communities are not the work, okay? And you all, I'm gonna give a real like throwback here. So y'all bear with me, but I try to give extremes just for the sake of clarity, right? So all white people just want to reform the hood, right? All black people live there. It must be the hood, and we need to reform the hood. And the way we're gonna reform the hood is we're gonna tell all Black boys that they need to pull up their pants, and we're gonna tell Black girls that they need to be more respectful. That that is making people of color the work, right? That is making Black people the work, as if only Black people got their stuff together, then the hood would no longer exist. But we know, okay, that the hood was created around policy, around legislation, around funding, around, right? And so when we focus on those things, then we give ourselves a chance to heal what was broken through white supremacy, right? But changing the people of the neighborhood is not the work of racial justice. You are not the work, our communities are not the work. Number 3, those who are our allies are always looking for ways to support, fund, assist, and join the efforts of racial justice, okay? Always. I have had way too many Black women come to me in the year of our Lord 2020/2021 and tell me that there are white people in their lives who have told them that it is their responsibility to educate the allies in their lives. And let me say loudly and clearly, there is not one ally in my life that I am responsible for educating. The allies in my life are not children. They are capable of doing their own research, of reading, of watching documentaries, of showing up, of joining the committees. And the truth is, 9 times out of 10, not only do I not need to tell them what time the protest is, I also get to go to the protest late because they're going to be the ones already there setting up the chairs and the microphone system. Y'all hear what I'm saying? It should be life-giving for allies to participate in the work of racial justice. If you have people in your life who are like, man, I don't do that. Do we have to? Are we talking about diversity again? Do we? Right? That is not an ally to you, right? Someone who is an ally should be passionate about this work. They should be, listen, I have allies in my life who are like, hey, Austin, did you hear about this thing happening? I'd be like, nope, sure didn't. So glad you told me. What newsletter was that on? I haven't even subscribed, right? Why? Because it's their joy to participate, right? This isn't done out of some grudging, like I have to do my chores, right? That it is passionate work. It is life-giving work. It is a joy to participate in. And that is a reasonable expectation from your allies. The last one is that your allies must be teachable and committed. They must be both teachable and committed. For a while there were just entirely too many white folks screaming about the change in language, right? Is it racial justice? Is it social justice? Is it ally? Is it accomplice? Why is the language always changing? What is happening? I'm so sick of trying to figure out this new language, right? But someone who is an ally is excited about learning something new. Someone who's an ally is like, you know what they enjoy? They enjoy when the light bulbs go off because they're getting deeper into both the work and understanding what's at stake. Right? They are beginning to understand why language matters. They're beginning to understand how their perspective is shifting. And truth be told, they're beginning to get free, right? Because all of us are trying to shake off the chains of white supremacy. But any ally who has decided that they have arrived and there is nothing new to learn, that is not someone who is safe for you. You need people around who enjoy being teachable, and you need allies around who are wholly committed. There is way too much of the, well, you hurt my feelings, and because you hurt my feelings, now I might not be a part of this anymore. This ain't no club. This isn't a club. This isn't you like get to show up and volunteer your time and then you like go home. This isn't the spring break volunteer trip. This isn't a club. This is either the work of your life or it isn't. Now, it could be that we need to like change some relationships. We need to redefine some mentorships, right? Like the work is messy. Don't get me wrong. The work is messy. And we got to be ready for all the transitions thereof, right? But no ally would say to me, you know what, I'm walking away. I can't do it anymore. I'm not interested anymore. I'm moving on to something else. Or you hurt my feelings. And so now I don't care about Black lives anymore. What? I want Black women to have the best allies around. I want you to feel loved. I want you to feel supported. I want you to feel seen. And I want you to feel so safe in the work, right? So safe that in the mutuality and in the solidarity of the relationships around you, that you can take a break. That you can be your whole self, that you can decide whether or not you need to be at the protest or whether or not you really just need to be at home with your family. Why? Because you're confident that the allies, that the people you're in relationship with are going to keep going, are going to keep pushing, that they don't need you present in order to continue the work. I want us to raise the bar on allyship, because Black women are deserving of that. Okay, I'm now going to pause right there because I want to have a really great conversation with Yvette. I see that there are already 2 questions down below. I assume you all will have more as Yvette and I start talking, but Yvette, come on back.
I am more than ready. Thank you so much for that. You know, I was doing my little praise over here, trying to remember I was live. Oh, just trying to remember I was
happy.
Live. Yeah. But it looks like Venice had a question. She wanted to know your thoughts about the Hallmark cards from Allies, the collection of Hallmark cards from Allies. So,
I mean, if they work for you, great. You know what I mean? There are some ways in which allies can support us on multiple levels, right? And some of them are more personal than others, you know, and some of them are considered more performative than others, right? So before our most recent election, my husband and I were looking for a house as our first home. We've been married for 11 years, and it is, I was feeling y'all on the home ownership thing. Okay. It's been a long time. It took us a long time to get here.
It was real.
Okay.
Right.
It took a miracle, let me tell you. Okay. Otherwise we would still be apartment living. But while we were looking, because it was election season, we were able to see the political makeup of our neighborhoods. Why? Because people had signs in their front yards. And let me tell you how helpful it was to drive through and
revelation.
Okay, Black Lives Matter signs or none. Okay, so while that is very performative, right? And there's a lot of Black people who would be like, "That's not helpful. Who you helping with the sign in the yard?" It was helpful to me while I was looking for a house. Okay. So do these things matter? Yes. Do they matter to everyone in the same ways all the time? No. But if you want a card, by all means, somebody should send you a card.
And a check in it. Yeah. So you don't have to struggle, right?
A card and some flowers and some chocolate and your favorite snack. Yes, sure.
So, when we talk about, a lot of people are really starting to open up about social justice and trying to learn. We do have new allies coming on board, and we are grateful for them. But I was reading back through some of your older articles when we were preparing for this, and I thought about how you were so before your time. I was thinking about this article, which is certainly my favorite, from 2015, where you
Uh-huh.
said 5 reasons you shouldn't fight for justice and the one reason why you should. And for those of you all who haven't had a chance, go back and look at this. 5 reasons why you shouldn't fight for justice, and the one reason you should. And I'm going to refresh your memory, Austin, because you look like you're 20 something, but I'm just going to help you out here just in case you can't remember.
You're
You
so
said,
sweet.
number one, it will exhaust you. Number two, you'll never feel like you're doing enough. 3, you never are able to unlearn what you've learned. 4, the hits keep coming. And 5, you'll hardly ever win. But Austin, tell us why it's still worth it. We
You
need a
know,
word from you, girl.
you know what? Well, first of all, particularly as a Black woman, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? You know, the phrase that I keep coming back to nowadays is, my dignity demands that I fight for my own humanity. Mine, Yvette, mine. My dignity demands it, you know? So often what we as Black women do, even as we are contemplating these things, thinking about our work, thinking about how we do our work. And a lot of times what we do is we default to either the generation past or the generation forward, right? So we'll say, you know what? I do this work because my ancestors started this work and I am a part of their legacy, and I am going to show up the same way they showed up. And that's beautiful. And there are a lot of us who will look forward and who will say, you know what, my baby boy, he deserves a better life than this one. He deserves a better America than this one. And so for my godchild, for my grandchild, for my son, for my daughter, right, I am going to work for a better America for them. And that's also really beautiful. But I hope y'all hear me today. You right now listening, you right now listening, your dignity, your humanity demands that we not stop. That we not stop speaking, that we not stop pushing, that we not stop writing, that we not stop showing up, that we not stop protesting. Why? Because our own dignity demands it. Because you are a citizen of America right now, and you deserve the benefits thereof. What's the alternative? Our humanity demands it.
I appreciate in the chat, Jack Jazzrill says his dignity as a white man demands the same thing. And I think the church can say amen to that, right?
Amen.
So it's all of our work, right? So I appreciate that. Another question we have is, in your book, you share multiple journeys of your experience as a Black woman and the challenges you've had navigating through predominantly white spaces. Can you elaborate on this and tell us why listening to Black women is key in challenging multiple forms of oppression?
You know what? The truth is, Black women have moved forward this work. And that's just the truth. That's just the truth, right? And we, as a society, we don't like to think about it that way, right? Because we've got all these other intersections happening with patriarchy and around sexuality and right, all kinds of things that have kept Black women out of the narrative, right? But the reality is that since Black women arrived on these shores, it has been us. We have been the ones who have been pushing America forward toward democracy. It's been us. You know, I feel like currently we are doing a better job of talking about the actors of the civil rights movement, right? When in the in the late 80s, early 90s, you only heard 2 names, okay? Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks. That was it, right? And I feel like we're doing a little bit of a better job recognizing just how expansive and how many organizations and how many Black folks it took to actually pull off the civil rights movement, you know? But what we still don't talk enough about are all those Black women who found all those copy machines in order to make all those flyers and then passed all of them out in order to make sure that there was people at the church meeting when King got up to speak. Y'all hear what I'm saying?
Right. Whose name's not going to be on the bulletin,
And
right?
name's not gonna be in no bulletin.
And it's okay.
Okay. We have
Right.
always been the movers of movements. We know what we're talking about. And if we would only be believed that we really do understand the problem and we really do know what the solution is, we would turn America upside down.
Megan Kaplan has a good question here.
Yeah.
What are some concrete examples of how we can help besides voting for these changes in policy and leadership? She wants some concrete examples from you, Austin.
Yeah, so first of all, I really encourage people to take in their own social location into thought, right? I really wish that I could give all of us like a 3-point list for what we
Right.
could all do, right? You know what I mean? If I could, that would be the next book and I would make so much money. Okay. But unfortunately,
right.
Okay. The truth is the systems are too big and too intertwined for me to be able to say, here are the 3 things that you should go do, right? So what I hope that you will do is you will say, you know what, I'm deeply passionate about education. Great. Tell me what about education you are passionate about. You know, are you passionate about hiring and retention of teachers of color, administrators of color? Are you passionate about the diversity in the curriculum? Are you passionate about the tax bracket that resources that school and not that school? Are you passionate, right? Tell me what you're passionate about, because what you're passionate about will lead you to your next step, right? It will lead you to that coalition. It will lead you to pushing for that legislation. It will lead you to signing that petition. It will lead you to joining that protest. It will lead you to forming that committee. It will lead you, right? And that's true for anything. If you're in the medical profession, if you're in the criminal justice, you know, like whatever it is that you're passionate about, there is a next step for you and multiple steps for you to figure out what's next, but you have to take inventory of your own social location. What are you passionate about? What do you have influence over? Who do you have connections to? What can you start right now? And the most important question, what already exists? Because too often what happens is white people have an aha moment, right? About racial injustice, about homelessness. They read those statistics, you know, and they're like, what can I go do? It's like, well, there's 47 Black women-led organizations who have been working on this for the last 50 years. I would suggest joining one of them and asking them what they need. Right.
And don't fund another research study, right? Don't give them the $10,000 to fund another research study. Living in this world is a research study that is like no other, right?
Hello.
So we greatly appreciate that. Okay. Another question from Amy Jewell here. She said, your work is such a force, which we all agree. She is thankful for your time. And she said, as we discuss allyship, she's curious how allies can culturally shift from shaming others to creating a culture of learning. What is your opinion on this? And how do you think white allies can balance grace with, I love this one, accountability? Great
Lord
question.
have mercy. I love this question.
Girl, just shout out to Amy.
Okay.
Right.
Honey,
shout out to Amy.
Give her the microphone.
Right.
Listen, there are few things that make anti-racist educators more like ragey, more frustrated, more irritated than white people who just learned 3 seconds ago what allyship is, but want to jump all over the newbie who is still trying to figure it out. I think it is a continued symptom of white supremacy to want to hold your journey over someone else instead of inviting them into the journey, just like somebody invited you into the journey. I really, really wish that white allies remembered that they were given grace and they were given compassion, and they asked really stupid questions, and somebody somewhere was gracious in answering them, in sending a book, sending an article. And it would, there are a few things that actually make me happier, like in the world of social media, than when a white person comes, you know, when one white person has said something that's like, oh, you're new to this. You're new to this, aren't you? Right. And another white person will say, oh my gosh, I used to think that same thing. Here's what helped me. Right. Oh, I had that same question when I was beginning my journey, and you should go over to ... Right. I really wish that white people led with compassion and humility. And you know what it is? Vulnerability. Right? I wish white people led with the same vulnerability that Black women do. Because when Black women are inviting people into this conversation, we don't just like crush you, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're a troll on Twitter, right? But that's not how Black women are in like real life at the community meeting, right?
That's a good purpose for the coffee. Let's have that conversation at the coffee. Yeah, let's talk about that. I'll give you a lot of grace there, but when I'm in the battle, I need some backup, you know? So the silence is deafening sometimes. Whew, girl.
Right? More vulnerability.
Right. John Weber, he is in the chat, and he's being very open here, and I love this. He said, I think a lot of us realize the right answers when we listen to you, but how do we look in the mirror and peel back our thoughts and actions and identify when we are perpetrating these unjust systems in our own lives, jobs, boards? I feel like even well-meaning people, me included, keep getting it wrong in practice. Thank you, John, for first just saying
My
it.
goodness.
And I'm tossing it to Austin to peel the layers back and give them something.
My gosh.
Give them something, girl.
That's the kind of vulnerability that we are talking about.
Thank you.
Right? Is to recognize that you're probably never going to be perfect in this work. Never. And that's because the work is always changing, right? And the more vocal Black women can be about our experiences, the more aha moments there are going to be for everybody. For everybody, right? Part of, I want to say this well, part of white supremacy is the deep belief that white people know better, do better, are better, right? That Black people are inferior, right? That's part of it. Black people are inferior, but also that white people are superior, right? It isn't that white people are just like neutral and Black people are bad, right? In the world of white supremacy, Black people are inferior and white people are superior, right? And so what white people have to constantly work against is this idea that you could ever be perfect, right? It's this notion that you could ever have it all together. The notion that you could ever be enough to undo what centuries has brought us, right? You must be willing to be in a constant, in some ways, a constant battle with yourself, recognizing that you are superior to no one. You're just human, like the rest of us. And we are all gonna bump our way through this. So I think the question is, can you say, I'm sorry, right? Can you say, I'll do better next time? Can you ask the people of color in your life what would be helpful? You know, so let's put ourselves back at the boardroom, right? And let's say you were the one who cut the white woman off. I mean, the Black woman off, right? You're like, damn, I can't believe I interrupted her, right? Right? So what would it look like to apologize publicly for something that was done publicly, right? What would it look like to now begin to call it out, including in yourself? What would it look like to ask privately, to ask a Black woman privately, how can restitution be made? Right? What would it look like to not be so afraid of messing up, right? But to create an expectation that you're probably going to mess up, that you now have ways to make restitution, right? That your ego isn't hurt by the fact that you made a mistake. And all that matters is the relationship and getting back to work within that right relationship. That's what I would hope for.
That's so deep because, we have a jewel here in our city, and Dr. Shannon Cameron, and she teaches cultural humility. And we took it as a staff at Metro United Way. And it was a step above. A lot of people talk about cultural competencies.
Yes.
She just talked about the role. If you have power and no humility, you're a problem.
Yes. Hello.
You are a problem. So when
Yes,
you talk
you
about
are.
allies, that's where I feel like some of them are in that space.
Yes.
They're powerful.
Yes.
They're interested, good people,
Yep.
but they lack that humility to say, you don't need to understand. I don't need you to have the answers right now. I just need you to hold me up, publicly just hold me up. Maybe you don't understand, you don't have the experiences, but right now, just let me be who I know I'm supposed to be. And you do you. Yeah. Not at my expense.
Not at my expense. And believe me, right? Believe me when I say that's helpful, that's not helpful, right? Because if I correct you, right? If I say that wasn't helpful, but what would be helpful, that means that I have faith, right? That you're in this with me, and that you want to be helpful, that you're more interested in being helpful than being right.
Swan has a good thing in here. She says, what gives you hope, Austin? What gives you
Oh
hope?
gosh. I get asked about hope a lot. And the true answer to this is that my hope is and always will be in Black people and Black women and Black queer folks, because we've been through it all. We've been through it all. And yet we keep fighting. My relationship with religion has changed a lot in my adulthood. But there is one biblical story and it's one little teeny tiny verse, y'all, one teeny tiny little verse in the Bible, in the book of Exodus, when the Israelites have been enslaved, right? And Pharaoh is like, you know what? If these folks ever decided to band together, it would be a problem.
Right. I ought to be glad.
Okay. So Pharaoh is like, work them harder. Okay. Right. Give them more. Make it more difficult. Right. And there's a teeny tiny little verse that says, but the people kept multiplying. They kept multiplying. And I love that because it means that even though we were facing the worst, and even though we were treated the worst, and even though we were treated so terribly, the people still looked at each other and winked, right? They still hugged one another. They still started families. They still fell in love. They still had jokes. They still ate good food. They still had customs and traditions. They didn't die, right? They continued on. They saw one another, right? They continued to say, my God, you're beautiful, right? And I feel that very same thing when I think about the Black community, right? That no matter how hard it gets, I know that when I go to Walgreens, there's going to be a Black woman in her car with her mask on, and she's going to be like, girl, love those passion twists. Right. Right. Girl, that color looks good on you. Right?
Right.
I was in Target yesterday waiting for my little prescription order, and the cute little Black girl walked through, and she had on the cutest little shoes. And I was like, girl, I see you with them shoes. Right?
That validation.
But I know for sure is that we will see each other and that we will fight for each other, that we not ever gonna stop. When it stops being trendy, right? We still gonna be here. We still gonna be fighting. We still gonna protest. We still gonna write. We still gonna hold forums like this. If only 2 people show up, we still gonna do it. My hope, honestly,
on this Tuesday after.
Listen,
You hold hundreds down on this Tuesday afternoon, so that's just who you are. Daniel Hampton has a great question here, but I'm gonna break away from that just a minute and come back to that, because when you start talking about that, it reminded me of another article you wrote about the power of a female friendship. So you talked about allyship, but the value of having just a few good girlfriends.
I mean, this will actually probably be the hardest one to respond to, because it's hard to give language to, you know? It's hard to give language. Okay, let me say it this way. So Beyonce comes out with Lemonade, right? And all the Black women, we all sitting around our iPads, TVs, phones, like whatever we needed in order to watch Lemonade, right? And eventually we realized what Beyonce is trying to tell us. Okay. And when we have all realized what Beyonce is trying to tell us, at the end of that song, she says, you better call Becky with the good hair.
Good hair.
First of all, I need you to know I almost fell off my chair because I was not prepared.
She was done.
I was not prepared, Yvette. I was not prepared. I didn't know he was going there.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But then my second thought was, now Beyonce, when we was all at the community meeting last Wednesday, you ain't tell nobody you was gonna share Becky with everybody. Okay. You didn't
expect her to come out of the hive with that. Right.
Listen, you didn't submit that before the board. Ain't nobody approve. Everybody knowing. Okay.
Y'all have to excuse
calling these
us.
white women Becky. Right. When they act a certain way. Right.
We needed that, but I'm going to get back to Daniel's question. He says, I'm the new chair of the DE&I committee, and one of the things he hears most from staff feedback is they are tired of talking and hearing about race.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is your best advice for responding to people who say they are tired of hearing about race?
Yeah. You know what? Well, first of all, it is tiring. It's tiring if you're passionate about it. Okay? It is tiring. It's exhausting to think about the levels on which America has failed at this so spectacularly. Okay? Has failed at creating a just nation. What I would say is that it is really, really important. I would say 2 things are really important. And one is to constantly frame up the why. Why do we keep talking about this? Why is it so important? Why should you be excited for this opportunity? Why? Why? You have to tap into something beyond the buzzword, right? So do we do all of this work because we all want to be set free? Do we all do this work because we believe deeply in our core that housing is a human right? Do we do this because we believe in our core that no child, no person, no body should be hungry in the United States of America? Do we do this? Right, Yvette?
The chat is live. Tamara's in the chat saying, we're talking about people getting tired of hearing it. What about tired of experiencing it and having to even say it over and over and over again? And the microaggressions, like living it. So you can't be tired of hearing it and talking about it, because I'm 51 and I'm tired of living it. I'm tired of having the same discussion for 20, 30 years, right?
So maybe
you can't be as tired as us yet. So that's the answer.
Maybe the answer is, when we get it right, we'll stop talking about it. right? Maybe the answer is, yo, when we reach these benchmarks, when we have these policies in place, when we see these outcomes, we can stop talking about it. Okay? Like, do you know how happy I would be to stop talking about racial justice? And just like,
right.
I sometimes sit around and think about what I would do if I didn't have to be talking about racial justice all day, every day. What would I do? Right? But from a leadership perspective, right? From a leadership perspective, I really believe that you have to tap into why racial justice is so important. If the only reason that your organization is talking about racial justice is to check off a box, you better believe people are tired. Black women probably tired of that too.
That is so true. That could be the resource. It might not be the topic. It might just be that the rest of your body of work as an organization doesn't support it. So when we teach at Metro United Way, Trent and I and Mandy, we go out and we do the wealth gap simulation, and that comes up a lot. And so we talk about, if it doesn't matter if you have a DE&I team, if HR is still paying people inequitably. Right. So they're creating new issues for you to address all the time. So it might not even be that they don't want to deal with racial stuff. Your staff might be looking at you and saying, but the rest of the organization is not matching the diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. We're not living it. We're not modeling it. So that could be a part of the problem. I'm just going to add my 2 cents.
Listen, there are a few things that are more frustrating to me than particularly a nonprofit organization that appears to be all about racial justice to the community and is not treating the people of color who work for them with the same level of justice and equity. That it really pisses me off. It really pisses me off, right? So it is part of when you are the leader of an organization trying to push forward equity, it is important that you understand why. Because the organization, the people in the organization will know if all this is the ability to check off a box. And every time you have a new thing, that should be reinforced. Today, we are going to talk about we're going to have Austin Channing Brown come to talk about Black womanhood, because we need to support all the Black women who are part of this organization. Imagine if every Black woman in this organization left, right? So on today, we're going to show up, right, as part of our racial justice initiative to support Black women, right? But every single thing that you do should have a tie back to the why. This is why this is important. If all you ever have is today we're going to have a diversity and inclusion meeting. Hope to see you there. Well, I'm bored too. Hell, like, what? Tell me why. Tell me what we're advancing. Tell me what we're doing. Tell me what's going to happen next. Tell me, right? Tell me why. Make it easy for me to get excited.
5 minutes left. That's not even fair. We only got 5
I
minutes
can't hear
left.
you, Yvette.
I said we only have 5 minutes left, so that's not even fair. But I'm gonna do a few things here for the chat. Just I'm active in it. Russell wants to thank you for the sermon that you preached in 2018 at the Evolving Faith Conference on climbing the mountain of injustice. He said you were stunning, and he appreciates you for that word. So I'm going to give you those flowers from Russell. Also, Taylor's in the chat saying she so appreciates your work. You're getting a lot of love here, girl. We got a lot of love for you.
I see y'all in the chat. I see you.
in this here Louisville, Kentucky. You got a lot of love coming to you. There is one other question before I close with my closing question. And it was somebody asking, what resources are out there to teach children about that? And I think that's a good thing.
That's a really
teach them
good
while they're early. What are some good resources that people can teach children about allyship?
Man, you know what? Well, first of all, let me say, you should Google it for real. and I don't mean that as like a sarcastic thing. Particularly in the last year, but even in the last like 5-ish years, there have been a lot more resources that have come out where people are literally creating lists, right? And I think they're also creating those lists based on age, right? So what you would teach to someone who's under 4 is different from what you would teach someone who's like in the 1st grade, is different what you would do in middle school, is different what you do in high school, right? So on and so forth. So I really do encourage you to Google this, because there are a lot more organizations who are pulling together those resources. But But if I can actually answer this question, not like with my teacher hat on, but with my mom hat on, I will tell you it's complicated. It's really complicated. My son, people were very conscious of the fact that I'm raising a baby boy. And so I bet more than 50% of the books that we got were about Blackness, right? But they were about history, right? They were about, here's like how he came out of slavery, and here's like the Jim Crow, and here's all the like Black greats of yesterday, right? And y'all, my son ain't read none of them. He ain't read none of them. Because even the way those are framed, right, is going to have an impact on him. And today, I just want him to play with like his Black Panther toy. You know what I mean? Like, I realize there's gonna come a day when we have to talk about it, right? And I'm sure he'll just be like overhearing me talk about it, right? Like it's only a matter of time, right?
But it's just like, don't pass on your baggage to him. Like, don't pass on the baggage to the kids. The kids, this is the generation that is more integrated and willing and open. Don't pass on the baggage to them. Just do that. Yeah.
I don't know.
Pass on your goodness and not your baggage to
yes. So like he has a little book that's like about going to the barber shop with his dad, and he loves that because his dad actually cuts his hair. And, you know, I think what I'm trying to say is that we're finding books that like affirm his life experience, right? That affirm who he is, even apart from whiteness, right? And there will come a day when we have to think about how whiteness is impacting him and how he's thinking through it, and right, all of those things. But right now, today, I just want to affirm who he is in his Blackness. But I want to acknowledge that that's complicated, right? Because my baby is 3, you know? And so we're in a different portion of his age than we will be, you know, in a couple of years, when we might have to start having that conversation and reading those books.
I got 30-year-old and 20 and 16-year-olds, and I still just want them to not always have to be cognizant of, like, just live today, son.
Right.
You know, just today.
I just want you to be human. Like, I just want you to enjoy your life, like all the white kids get to do.
So, you know, I wanted to end with that last question.
Yes.
Long time from now, when you have done all you said and done, because you live your life with purpose. You don't write these articles. You don't do this stuff. You're sacrificing. You're doing this with purpose. You're fighting. What is the bumper sticker going to say, Austin, when you ride off and say, okay, I'm passing the torch to the next generation. I have done all I can do. What's the bumper sticker going to say, girl?
I hope it says joy and justice. Because it's what I really want for my people. And it's what I want for them, not just in the future, but I hope it's what Black people experience with me right now, today. You know, I hope that there is never a lecture, a workshop, anything that I give where Black people didn't feel joy and pride and, you know, affirmation. And I really hope, I'm tired of a pursuit of justice that is only downtrodden, and that is only pain, and that is only trauma. I really, really want to set free the natural joy of being a Black person. And so I hope that my bumper sticker will say joy and justice.
You have brought us joy today, girl. It's been good having you. We love you. You are fabulous and beautiful and all those other things in between. I want to say thank you to everybody who was live in the chat, white, Black, everybody who signed on to this and signed up and have been active in our speaker series and have been engaged in these conversations in our community. We appreciate you no matter where you are in this fight. Stay in it. You heard what Austin had to say. I'm going to turn it over to our fearless leader, Teresa Reno Weber, to wrap it all up for us. Thanks again, Austin. You're amazing, girl.
Oh my gosh, I need to take a breath. If I had a microphone, I would drop it right now. Austin, I have goosebumps, honestly. Like, thank you so tremendously. I mean, just, it was incredible. I was crying through it, doing a lot of self-reflection. I can promise you, as Yvette shared, we've done a lot of work at Metro United Way. We have not always gotten it right. I have not always gotten it right. Your words were just so powerful and so spot on and so instrumental and instructive. I think you took all of us to school in the best way possible. And I'm just incredibly thankful to have shared this time with you and for you to have shared your brilliance. I promise you, I'm leaving here more joyful and more committed to justice. And I think everybody on here is as well. So, I mean, your bumper sticker, you nailed that question, man. I love it. But, I want to make sure that everybody out there just knows that this is the work. You said so many powerful things, right? Like this is a life's work. You can't just be in it for a moment and out of it. It needs allyship. It needs Black women and their brilliance. It needs all of us to come together if we're going to be able to help everybody live to their full potential and unlock the potential of the human race, right? Of humanity, of all of us. I mean, there's so many things in my head right now that you said throughout this talk. It was recorded. We were going to have to share this with folks because so many people need to hear it. I shared with you at the beginning, this is my last Beyond Buzzwords as the CEO of Metro United Way, but it is not my last Beyond Buzzwords. I promise you that. I am so looking forward to joining future Beyond Buzzwords events. I know that they will continue to bring phenomenal speakers like yourself to our community to expand our perspective, to open our hearts, open our minds, better understand the lived experiences of our neighbors so that we can truly embrace everyone and that so that everybody knows and feels that their humanity matters. I can't tell you how I think just horrible and disgusting it is that our country continues to fail to live to its highest ideals and aspirations. And I know that was something that you lifted up and it really resonated. And the board and the team at Metro United Way, for all of you out there, I promise you they are committed to creating a more just and equitable community that provides opportunities for everyone to thrive. And they are making moves, right? I mean, Austin, you talked about this. It is not just about performative, art and words and things. It's about changing policies. It's about changing investments. It's about making the decisions that through action prove where your commitment and heart is. And the board and the team at Metro United Way are doing that every single day. And I'm so proud to have been a small part of it and so excited to see where it goes from here. The conversations like these are critical, but it's only a small part of the intentional, thoughtful work that is going on. And I know that so many of you want to be more of a part of that. And so please, it's not easy, it's messy, like Austin said, but it is completely worth it if we're going to have the type of world that we all want, not only for our children, but again, I'm just going to keep channeling Austin, but for ourselves. Each one of us deserves that. Each one of you out there deserves it. The people that we are among today deserve it. We shouldn't be waiting for some future promise. We should create it today, and I think we have it within our power to do that. Metro United Way has a lot of great resources, not just these conversations. Please go to metrounitedway.org, check them out, look for opportunities to continue not only the conversation, but the work. And be on the lookout, of course, for our upcoming series in the fall. And I will just say, until then, be well and be kind to one another. Thank you so much. We'll see you at a future one.